At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to Good Advice Givers, the podcast where real stories meet real solutions. Whether you're leveling up in life, navigating your hustle, or simply looking for wisdom that works, you're in the right place. We bring you straight talk, actionable tips, and uplifting conversations to help you grow in mindset, money, and motivation. Don't just listen, tune in weekly, download your favorite episodes, and if you love what you hear, donate to support the mission. Your support helps us keep sharing the good advice that changes lives. We're building a community of thinkers, doers, dreamers, and believers, and we want you in it. From interviews with entrepreneurs and creatives to personal reflections on real-world challenges, every episode is packed with practical value. Ready to grow with us? Let's get into it.
Hey, ever start to think about how much can be crammed into, well, just a single date on the calendar?
It's pretty wild when you look closely.
Yeah, today we're going to pull back the layers on April 20th. It's a date that sparks very different images, very different feelings for people.
That's right. The material you sent over, the many faces of April 20th, it really opened my eyes to just how much historical weight and, cultural weight this one day carries. We're going to explore why it's so globally recognized for cannabis culture, the whole 420 thing.
Right.
But also why it holds this really somber significance of being Adolf Hitler's birthday.
Exactly. And, our goal here is always to give you the crucial info without sort of bogging you down.
Get right to it.
Yeah. So our mission today is to understand this surprising duality of April 20th, why it's a day of celebration for some, and, well, a day of stark remembrance for others. The material you shared gives us a really broad view, its origins, some twists and turns I definitely didn't expect. Okay, so where do we even start with a date this complex? Maybe the more lighthearted side first, the story behind 420.
Sounds like a good place to start. And what's fascinating is how this whole global thing seems to have sprung from something so small, so specific.
Right.
So back in the early 1970s, you've got this group of high school students in California. They call themselves the Waldos.
The Waldos, okay.
Yeah, and they used 420 as a kind of code. The idea was they'd meet up at 4:20 p.m. by this Louis Pasteur statue at their school to go search for this rumored abandoned cannabis crop nearby.
And did they find it?
Incredibly, no, they never actually found it.
They searched and came up empty. That's almost... It's funny, right? How this huge phenomenon has such an almost anticlimactic start.
Totally. But that regular meeting time, 420 Louis, it just kind of morphed into 420. It became their secret shorthand for talking about cannabis.
Okay, so that's the local bit. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. How did this little high school code break out and, go global?
Well, it seems the Grateful Dead played a pretty significant role.
Ah, okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, one of the Waldos apparently had a connection to the band, or their circle anyway. And as the term started circulating within the whole Grateful Dead community, it really stuck. Mm-hmm. It evolved. It wasn't just about when to meet anymore. It became this broader symbol within marijuana culture itself.
Right. It became the thing, not just the time.
Exactly. Represented the whole culture.
And then by the 1990s, this symbol had totally blossomed into this unofficial weed day, right? Celebrated every April 20th.
Mm-hmm.
The material you shared talks about these incredible gatherings starting to pop up, like thousands of people showing up in places like Golden Gate Park in San Francisco,
crowd.
The University of Colorado Boulder, even Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Hyde Park in London, people just coming together.
It was this mix, wasn't it? Part celebration, part, a very public push for change. A protest, almost.
Mm.
Definitely. If you connect this to the bigger picture, you can really see it reflecting a shift, right? A real change in how society was starting to view cannabis.
Absolutely. Those big, visible gatherings were a powerful demonstration. It showed a growing movement that was pushing for legalization, celebrating what many saw as the plant's benefits.
Okay, now fast forward to today. Things have changed a lot. We've seen legalization happen in many places, U.S. states, Canada, Uruguay, Malta. How has that massive shift influenced the way 420 is, well, observed?
Well, what's intriguing, I think, is this transition. It went from something that felt a bit like civil disobedience.
Right, like sticking it to the man.
Kind of, yeah. To something much more mainstream.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, advocating for policy reform is still a key part of April 20th.
Okay.
You've got groups like MPP Marijuana Policy Project and NORM-LML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. They're still actively using the day to push for things like federal legalization in the U.S. or addressing the, frankly, huge racial disparities in cannabis arrests.
That's crucial work.
Absolutely, and expungement, getting records cleared. But alongside that activism, we've seen this huge surge in commercial activity.
Oh, yeah. The material you put together really hits that hard. It feels like every cannabis company, dispensary, heck, even companies that have nothing to do with cannabis are trying to, tap into the 420 buzz.
Totally. Discount deals, limited edition products, sponsored events.
Even fast food places making jokes about the munchies, right?
Exactly. It's everywhere, which, raises this important question with all this commercial stuff. Is the original spirit, the activism, getting lost? Yeah.
Diluted, maybe?
Some longtime advocates definitely feel that way. But, others might argue it's just a sign that cannabis is becoming more accepted, more normalized. Well, it's complicated, a definite evolution.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's take a sharp turn now, a really sharp one, to the other major association with April 20th, Adolf Hitler's birthday. It's a jarring contrast, to say the least.
It is. Very jarring. Born April 20th, 1889. Hitler's legacy is just one of immense devastation. His central role in starting World War II, orchestrating the Holocaust.
The systematic murder of over 6 million Jews.
Yes. It casts this incredibly long, dark shadow over the date. In many historical contexts, academic contexts, it's just a solemn reminder of, the terrible consequences of unchecked hate and totalitarianism.
And disturbingly, the material you shared points out how April 20th has actually become a focal point for neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups today.
Yeah, they try to use it. They see it as a symbolic day for rallies, for spreading their hateful messages.
It really is. And what's particularly troubling is how this date has been linked, however indirectly sometimes, to acts of violence.
Yeah.
Most notably, the Columbine High School massacre.
Right, 1999. Tragically, it happened on Hitler's birthday.
And while, as the material notes, a direct link proving the shooters were neo-Nazis wasn't definitively established.
Right, it wasn't clear-cut.
The timing itself just led to so much speculation, didn't it?
Yeah.
About their motivations, maybe wanting shock value.
Exactly. It added another layer of horror to an already horrific event. It's a chilling connection, even just to consider.
It really is. The information you provided also touches on how the world responds to this misuse of April 20th.
Yeah.
Particularly in Germany, where, any public display or a positive mention of Hitler is illegal.
Yeah, strict laws there. And organizations like the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, they actively monitor for hate group activity around this time.
And Jewish organizations often use the date for Holocaust education efforts.
Right.
Kind of counter-programming the hate.
Precisely. It really brings that stark duality of the date right into focus, doesn't it? On one hand, you have this growing, global, often cheerful celebration around cannabis.
Yeah.
And on the other, a date that carries immense historical pain and is actively exploited by groups promoting hate.
It really makes you think, how can one single day hold such wildly different meanings for different people? It's kind of mind-bending. And the material you compiled, it actually looks at other notable events and birthdays on April 20th, too, which was quite a surprise.
It is a surprisingly busy day. When you look beyond those two, dominant narratives, you find this really diverse mix.
Haiku.
Well, people born on April 20th include George Takei.
Oh, wow. Sulu.
Yeah. Jessica Lange, Carmen Electra, the amazing musician Tito Puente.
Quite the list.
And historically,
Yeah.
the first known performance of Shakespeare's Macbeth in 1611.
No kidding.
Yep. Freedom of religion being granted to Jewish people in New Amsterdam back in 1657. The Apollo 16 moon landing in 1972.
And Columbine, of course, in 1999.
Right. It really challenges the idea that this date is only about cannabis or only about Hitler. It's much more layered.
Yeah, it throws a real curveball into how we think about why certain dates become so significant, doesn't it? Okay, let's circle back to how 420 itself has evolved more recently. The material you shared really emphasizes how deeply connected it's become with this massive, multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry.
Oh, absolutely. What started as this sort of underground counterculture thing has now been fully embraced by corporations, by influencers. We're seeing slick marketing campaigns, big sponsored events, even, as we said, non-cannabis brands trying to get a piece of that cultural cachet.
Trying to seem cool, basically.
Pretty much become a major marketing moment on the calendar.
But the information you provided also makes it really clear that the activism hasn't just vanished under all that commercial gloss.
Not at all.
April 20th is still a really important moment for pushing for changes in cannabis laws, right?
Exactly. Advocates are definitely still using the day. They highlight the ongoing need for decriminalization, for federal legalization in the U.S. We talked about expunging records, making sure the legal industry is equitable, which is a huge issue, and expanding access to medical marijuana. The high visibility of 420 just gives them this powerful platform for these really crucial conversations.
And it's not just about legal stuff anymore, is it? The material mentioned how 420 is also being used to spotlight the growing body of research around medical cannabis.
That's a really significant aspect, yeah. There's so much more interest now in understanding how its different components, cannabinoids, terpenes, all that,
right?
How they might help with things like pain management, certain mental health conditions, neurological disorders, even just understanding our own internal system, the endocannabinoid system that interacts with these compounds.
Fascinating.
So April 20th becomes an opportunity to share these scientific advancements, cut through some of the old stigma with actual data.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey there. Welcome to Good Advice Giver. First, we want to start by saying a massive thank you for tuning in today. Whether you're a long-time listener or you're joining us for the first time, we're truly grateful to have you here. We know you've got a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so the fact that you're spending your time with us means the world. So thank you.
That's right. We're excited to have you with us because here on Good Advice Giver, we cover just about everything. Whether you're interested in sports, relationships, sex, money, finances, business, digital marketing, music, education, movies, comedy, or something else entirely, we've got it all. No topic is off limits here, and we dive deep into real, meaningful conversations that matter.
We've also got a mix of male and female hosts, so you're always getting a well-rounded perspective on every topic we cover. From business strategies to personal development, from car shopping to digital products like affiliate marketing, we bring a little bit of everything to the table. Our goal is to offer advice, insights, and some laughs along the way to make sure you feel welcome and engaged, no matter what brought you here.
And it doesn't stop there. We're not just about giving great advice, we're about action. On this podcast, we even sell products and services we believe in, from affiliate marketing opportunities to cars and more. So whether you're looking to boost your business or find practical ways to improve your everyday life, you're in the right place.
As always, we want you to stay connected with us. Be sure to download this episode so you can listen anytime, anywhere, whether you're commuting, working out, or just relaxing. And while you're at it, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. That's the best way to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and even giveaways.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're posting extra content there, including video podcasts and deep dive discussions you won't want to miss. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what topics you want to hear more about.
Lastly, check out the link below in the description for exclusive offers, resources, and more ways to connect with us. We're here for you, and we can't wait to bring you more valuable content. Thanks again for tuning in to Good Advice Giver. Let's get started.
Plus, you just can't ignore how much 420 is just part of pop culture now.
Oh, totally.
The info you shared lists so many musicians practically synonymous with cannabis. Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa,
Cypress Hill, Bob Marley, obviously Rihanna, A.P. Rocky, Kid Cudi, Drake.
Right.
The list goes on.
Right. And it's a recurring theme or joke or plot point in TV shows, movies. And don't even get me started on the internet memes.
It's become so deeply woven into the cultural fabric, All those mentions, whether it's in song lyrics or, a funny scene in a movie, they all contribute to the ongoing normalization of cannabis. And it just further cements 420's place in the mainstream consciousness.
Now, this next part of the material you put together I found really interesting. The whole complex relationship between faith, religion, and 420. It's definitely not a simple picture.
No, it's really quite nuanced. On one hand, you have many mainstream religions, historically at least, expressing opposition to cannabis use, often citing concerns about, impairment, potential for addiction, things like that. Catholic Church, Baptist, Orthodox Jewish streams, mainstream Islam.
Okay.
But then you also have religious traditions with really deep historical connections to the plant.
Like Rastafarianism.
Exactly. For Rastafari, cannabis, or ganja, is considered a sacred herb used in reasoning sessions to aid meditation and spiritual insight.
And others.
Well, some Hindu sects, particularly those devoted to Shiva, have used cannabis in rituals for centuries. There's even mention in some ancient Taoist texts about its potential medicinal and maybe spiritual application.
Wow. It really highlights the incredibly varied ways humans have interacted with this one plant throughout history across totally different belief systems.
It does. And the material you shared points out that there's actually an increasing amount of dialogue happening now between different faiths.
About what?
About the ethical considerations of cannabis legalization, particularly around social justice, criminal justice reform.
Tying back to those disparities we mentioned.
Exactly. It's a really important conversation to be having, especially considering how past drug policies have disproportionately harmed certain communities, often communities of color.
So, taking this global now, how does all this play out around the world? The information you compiled gives a bit of a snapshot, right? How 420 is observed or maybe not observed in different countries.
Yeah, it varies quite a bit, as you'd expect. In Canada, for instance, where cannabis is fully legal nationally,
Right.
Point 420 has become quite a large community gathering day. It's part celebration, part still a moment for political engagement, talking about how the legal system is working or not working.
Okay, what about the Netherlands? Amsterdam's famous for its coffee shops.
Interestingly, they don't have huge formal 420 celebrations in the same way, but they definitely see an uptick in cannabis-related tourism around that time. It's more of an ongoing culture than a single peak day, perhaps.
In Jamaica, given the Rastafari connection.
There, it tends to blend more seamlessly with Rastafarian spiritual practices. It doesn't have the same kind of commercial recognition you see in North America.
In Germany.
In Germany, the focus tends to be more on policy reform discussions and highlighting advancements in medical cannabis, which is legal there.
Gotcha. And then there are places where it's completely different.
Oh, yeah. Countries with emerging cannabis economies, maybe like Mexico or Thailand or South Africa, they might be slowly seeing 420 introduced as a concept. But in nations with very strict drug laws, Singapore, Saudi Arabia were mentioned.
Yeah.
Even acknowledging 420, certainly celebrating it publicly, could carry really serious legal consequences, punishable offenses.
It really just demonstrates how much local cultural norms and, crucially, the legal framework shape the meaning and the actual observance of the state globally. Okay, we have to circle back, though, to that darker aspect. It feels unavoidable. The tragic connection to the Columbine massacre and the way extremist groups have sort of co-opted April 20th.
This is a really critical piece of the puzzle if you want to understand the full weight of April 20th. The Columbine High School shooting was just horrific, a generation-defining tragedy for many.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it occurred on Adolf Hitler's birthday just immediately led to this intense speculation about the shooter's motivations. Were they neo-Nazis? Was the date deliberate for that reason?
Even though, as we said, that direct link wasn't definitively proven.
Correct. But the association was made very publicly, very quickly. And the information you provided really emphasizes the lasting impact Columbine has had on how we think about school safety, obviously, gun violence debates in the U.S., mental health awareness. It's a tragedy that continues to echo.
And unfortunately, as we touched on earlier, April 20th has also become this date that white supremacist and other extremist groups have latched onto, precisely because of the Hitler connection.
Yeah, they see it as a day to rally, to commemorate him, to promote their ideologies. Law enforcement agencies, groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, they actively monitor for increased chatter and potential activity around this time.
So there's a very real concern about hate crimes, symbolic acts of violence.
Sadly, yes. It's a sobering reminder that these hateful ideologies are still present and vigilance is needed.
And this all ties into how the media covers April 20th, doesn't it? Which is another point you raised in the material. The framing really matters.
It matters hugely. Media framing really shapes public perception. So, depending on the news outlet, the specific story focus, you might see April 20th presented primarily as a day of, lighthearted cannabis celebration.
Yes, stoner holiday headline.
Right. Or it could be framed as a solemn day to remember the atrocities of the Nazi regime. Or a time to reflect on the tragedy of Columbine and discuss school safety. Or even as a date where there's a heightened risk of terrorism or extremist activity.
So many different angles.
Exactly. And this varied coverage contributes to the complex, sometimes really conflicting public identity of April 20th.
It makes you think about the psychology behind it all. Why do certain dates get so loaded with meaning? You introduced this concept in the material, temporal symbolism. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. It's basically the idea from psychology and sociology that specific points in time dates on a calendar can become deeply connected to strong emotions, significant memories, shared cultural meanings, even specific behaviors. Dates acquire symbolic weight. April 20th is a really powerful, if complicated, example of this. It evokes such different, sometimes incredibly intense responses based on both collective history, like World War II or Columbine, and personal histories or affiliations, like being part of cannabis culture.
Like other dates we think of, maybe 9/11 or December 25th or July 4th, they carry this heavy weight of shared experience and symbolic meaning.
Precisely. Though April 20th is maybe unique in having such starkly opposing meanings attached to it simultaneously.
Which leads us right to this central question that the material raises. Can April 20th, or maybe should April 20th be reclaimed or somehow redefined? It feels like a real ethical tightrope walk.
It really is. There are arguments on both sides. Some argue for reclaiming it, saying, look, the meaning of dates can evolve. They might point to Juneteenth in the U.S., a date marking the end of slavery, which has gained much broader recognition and celebratory status over time. Maybe 420's positive freedom-oriented aspects can eventually overshadow the negative.
Okay, that's one perspective.
But then there's a strong argument for caution. People warning against letting, celebratory commercialism, the fun side of 420, completely overshadow or erase the memory of the very real tragedies and the hateful ideologies also tied to the day, that we risk trivializing horror.
Right. That feels important too.
And the material you shared highlights some interesting middle ground approaches emerging. Things like dual observance events trying to hold space for both celebration and solemn remembrance, or community education initiatives, really talking about all the meanings. Digital literacy efforts, too, helping people navigate the different narratives they see online.
It sounds like a really complex issue with absolutely no easy answers.
Definitely not. Ultimately, I think this deep dive into April 20th really reveals it as a date of profound duality. It embodies celebration and sorrow, freedom and hate. It just underscores the incredibly intricate ways that we as a society create meaning, remember history, and grapple with difficult legacies.
So here's maybe the final thought to leave our listeners with. Considering all these diverse, often really conflicting meanings tangled up in April 20th, what responsibility do we have? As individuals, as a society? How do we shape the narrative, the observance of a date like this? Is it even possible for one single date to hold such drastically different significance long-term? Or will one meaning eventually just sort of win out in our collective consciousness?
That's a powerful question. Definitely gives you a lot to consider.
It does. I really encourage you, our listeners, to reflect on the different facets we've talked about today. Maybe explore further some of the history, the cultural movements that stood out to you.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us into the many, many faces of April 20th.
My pleasure. It was fascinating to explore.
Until our next exploration.
Welcome to Good Advice Givers, the podcast where real stories meet real solutions. Whether you're leveling up in life, navigating your hustle, or simply looking for wisdom that works, you're in the right place. We bring you straight talk, actionable tips, and uplifting conversations to help you grow in mindset, money, and motivation. Don't just listen, tune in weekly, download your favorite episodes, and if you love what you hear, donate to support the mission. Your support helps us keep sharing the good advice that changes lives. We're building a community of thinkers, doers, dreamers, and believers, and we want you in it. From interviews with entrepreneurs and creatives to personal reflections on real-world challenges, every episode is packed with practical value. Ready to grow with us? Let's get into it.
Every day you just want to say Happy Easter Day. You're just ready and really for all of the things that come along with it. And this year, it just happens to be on 420. And everyone is here for the things that they are trying to figure out today. And bless the Lord for the story and the history of what comes along with 420 and all of its glory. I know that you are going to be here today, tomorrow, the next day, tuned in, listening to the good advice givers. And if I were you, I would definitely partake in such a day that allows everyone to have a good time and allows everyone to understand that today is the day for you to bless yourself, to bless others, to give and share. And even the Indians had what they call the peace pipe, and they puffed, and they passed. Now, if you were going to celebrate today, 420, make sure that you do it so in moderation. Do it well, you know. They say that, you know, anything is too much is too much, but do it in moderation. Do it to capacity. Make sure that you get all of what you're trying to get out of the situation, and love one another, and understand that, like Jerry Springer, these are my final thoughts. So if you would, if you could, just come with us and share with us everything that you do, everything that you have done, so that we all can get along. And think about it. It's just something that needs to be done. I'm glad to be here, and thank God for 420. And for all of you people who are like Nazis or something and celebrating like Hitler's birthday, just think about who cares about that this day and age, you know. It's more about 420 celebration of like partaking in cannabis and the legalization of, let's say, what, marijuana. You got so many names. Just know that we all are in love with Mary Jane. Thank you for tuning in, and this is me signing off. Thank you.
Today is your lucky day. Today is the day that our $3 website works for you, paying you directly to your PayPal daily. Imagine $3 ongoing continuous payments to your PayPal account. Imagine falling asleep and waking up to $300 in your PayPal account. How would this make you feel? How could this help you? What bills could you pay? What kind of fun could you have? What does that retirement look like now? All for a one-time payment of $3. This website is DFY done for you, fully built and completely hosted, and never stops collecting payments for you. You have spent $3 on coffee on a regular, but that coffee won't help you create multiple streams of income. Click the link below.